Isn't it interesting to look back on the past and see how common household items and decor have changed over time? In this video, we'll be taking a trip down memory lane and looking at household items from the 90s that were once a must-have that no longer exist or are significantly rarer than they used to be. Some of these we miss and others we can't believe ever existed in the first place. Let us know what items you used to have in the comments below. First up, we have the most popular home item of the decade: dial-up modems. Internet access has come a long way in the decades since the 90s. These days, wireless internet and broadband provide fast and easily accessible internet for billions around the world. But back in the day, the internet could only be accessed through phone lines, and dial-up modems took up an entire phone line at home. While a few remote or rural areas are still using dial-up modems today, the rest of us will never have to hear that awful dial-up screeching again. Next up, we have phone nooks. Before everyone had a smartphone glued to their hand, many 90s homes had a dedicated phone nook in the kitchen. It was usually a small counter or corner shelf where the house phone sat, complete with a tangled cord and a notepad for jotting down messages. This was the hub of household communication, where you'd call your friends, wait for important news, or eavesdrop on someone else's conversation from the hallway. Some even had bulletin boards with family schedules pinned right above. Today, those nooks are often repurposed or gone altogether, but they were once the nerve center of every busy home. Next on the list, we have the VCR. By the time the 90s rolled around, nearly everyone had a VCR in their home, and the local Blockbuster was packed on Friday nights. VCRs were also lightning rods for children to stuff toys and apparently sandwiches into. The VCR was the ultimate home cinematic experience, but it always came with challenges like fuzzy picture tracking, waiting for rewinding, and potential machine damage. But do you remember how to clean a VCR head? I think we all do. Now, if Britney Spears with short cropped hair and a sparkly crop top wasn't your first clue that this photo was taken in the 90s, then the tacky beaded curtain should have tipped you off. Walking through one of these made you feel like you were entering a mystical realm. Every cool 90s kid had one hanging in their bedroom doorway. The relaxed vibe the curtains gave off fit in with the bohemian trend of the 1990s, which has now, unsurprisingly, making a huge comeback. Next up, we have CRT computer monitors. Before our desks were graced with sleek laptops and razor-thin screens, they were dominated by these giant, boxy beasts. You remember the low hum they made and how just turning one on felt like powering up a spaceship? For many of us, a CRT was our first window into the digital world. But over the years, sleeker technologies like LCD, OLED, and plasma took over. They're lighter, bigger, cheaper, and way easier on the eyes and the back. That said, some die-hard gamers still swear by CRTs for their low input lag and flexible resolution support. But for most people, these chunky monitors have disappeared. And who could forget popcorn ceilings? Yep, those bumpy textured ceilings that looked like they were sprinkled with cottage cheese. They were everywhere in the 90s, praised for their ability to hide imperfections and absorb sound. But the truth is, they were nearly impossible to clean, attracted dust like magnets, and made painting a total nightmare. As design trends moved toward cleaner, sleeker finishes, popcorn ceilings quickly fell out of favor. Still, if you ever stayed at a relative's house or lived in an older home, chances are you've stared at one of these while lying in bed, trying to make out shapes in the texture. Next up, we have alarm clocks. Now, these are certainly still around, but younger generations are relying more and more upon their phones to wake them up. Back in the 90s, every bedroom had an alarm clock, but it will be rare to find one in households today. And who could forget the snooze button struggle? Smacking that big button for just 5 more minutes was practically a morning ritual. Now in the 90s, we scheduled our lives around what was on TV. This was because if you didn't see a show or a sporting event when it aired, you didn't see it at all. Each time an episode aired, everyone was talking about it the next day. And sure, sometimes you could tape a show and watch it later. But sometimes working VCRs was more art than science. Appointment television was the norm, and so networks did big ratings when a show hit it big. Of course, streaming platforms now make it easy to binge shows or watch them at your own pace. While some streaming series do release episodes weekly, the concept is somewhat making a comeback. And who could forget the CD cabinet that had to be near the 6-CD stereo? It's certainly rare to see one in a home now, but kids from the 90s will certainly remember trying to press the magnetic locking mechanism just right, so the glass would open to provide access to a tall CD rack, filled with albums from the Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears, and Nirvana. Now, if you grew up in the 90s, chances are your home had a Rubbermaid laundry basket that your parents had since before you were born. That plastic basket with ventilation holes that somehow always ended up overflowing with clothes. Whether you were dragging it to the laundry room or using it as a toy box, it was a household staple. Unlike today's collapsible or fabric baskets, these were practically indestructible, surviving years of wear and tear. If you ever stubbed your toe on one, you definitely remember just how solid they were. When you reflect on things 30 years later, it's hard to imagine why we needed such large speakers in our homes. It was almost like we felt like we could throw a rock concert in our living room. These days, we don't see gigantic speakers. A soundbar will power your living room just fine. But in the 90s, if you wanted to truly feel the music, you needed those massive tower speakers. The bigger, the better. They took up a ton of space, but nothing could match the deep bass and booming sound they delivered. If you grew up in the 90s, you probably remember how getting new carpet felt like the ultimate home upgrade. Back then, thick plush carpet wasn't just a flooring choice, it was a statement. The thicker, the better. It was all about that velvety softness under your feet, the kind you could practically sink into. Sure, it trapped every last crumb and was a nightmare to vacuum, but it felt luxurious at the time. Carpet's still around today, but let's be honest. It's just not as thick or as cozy as it used to be. And who doesn't remember vertical blinds? The clanky, stubborn window coverings that never quite closed right. They were the go-to choice for sliding glass doors or big windows, and chances are, at least one slat was always missing or twisted the wrong way. They made a distinct noise when you pulled them open, and let's be honest, getting them to line up evenly was an Olympic sport. While they were considered modern at the time, most people today have swapped them out for more stylish options like roller shades or curtains, but that clicking sound burned into our brains forever. Next up, we have screensavers, which aren't all that common anymore now that most of our devices have a sleep function to conserve power. In the 90s, however, there was one screensaver you'd see in many homes, the Windows 95 3D Maze. Here, you're basically watching your computer play a video game as it automatically takes left turns until finding the smiley face, before starting all over again. There was something really mesmerizing about it, and honestly, why hasn't Microsoft made a full-fledged game out of this? And who could forget about resin figurines? These were a popular home decor item in the 1990s that were usually placed on top of the TV or in a display cabinet. And there was rarely ever one. People had multiple of these. The figurines faded when home decor trends changed towards minimalism in the 2000s, but they continue to carry nostalgic importance for individuals who grew up in the 1990s. Next on the list, we have brass fixtures, and they were everywhere. With its warm look, brass was all over traditional family homes in the 1990s. After a brief rest, the metal is now being revived to accessorize modern spaces. The way the metal tarnishes gives it an appealing rustic look, and vintage thrifters love its old-school vibe, using it for everything from chandeliers to faucets once again. But if you ever go into an untouched 90s home, chances are you'll find those warm, golden tones gleaming back at you from everywhere. Another unmistakable house trend from the 90s. Glass block walls. Throughout the 1990s, glass block walls were used in residences in a number of ways. In 1996, glass block had achieved its lowest point in 20 years, but had made a spectacular comeback. It may not have been found in every home, but it was definitely in style. They were designed to provide privacy while allowing light to enter, but let's accept it, they always had a vibe of an old office block. Now, if you grew up in the 90s, chances are you used bright, big towels with your favorite cartoon characters, not just for the beach, but for any time a towel was needed. Bath time was much more fun with these towels, whether it was Ninja Turtles, Looney Tunes, or The Lion King. But they always appeared to fade into a strange pastel reflection of their previous glory after years of washing. Back then, there was something unique about wrapping oneself in a gigantic SpongeBob towel. Next up, we have the Doctor's Book of Home Remedies, a famous handbook for rapid home cures in the 1990s, which was widely used in households. It offered basic, easy-to-follow guidance for a variety of sicknesses. Despite being a nostalgic antique, it nonetheless represents a symbol when the finest remedies began with a well-worn book. Did you have one of these? And coming in at number 20, who could forget that every 90s home felt incomplete without a bowl of fake plastic grapes sitting in the dining room or kitchen? These shiny, dust-covered fruits were practically a staple, and let's be real, every kid or visitor tried to bite into them at least once, only to learn the hard way they weren't edible. While ornamental fruit still exists today, the ultra-shiny, obviously plastic varieties have mostly disappeared, replaced by more realistic fake fruit or simple centerpieces. But let's face it, nothing says Grandma's house quite like a dusty bunch of fake grapes. Thanks for joining our trip down memory lane. We know these home items will always hold a special place in our memories and shared history. Which home item do you miss the most? Make sure to like and subscribe for more videos. Until next time, see you soon.